All right. I just saw a news or a Rice News interview of the Minister of Trade, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, and the excitement about what is going on in Davos. Kudos to everyone in Davos and trying to make our country great again and selling the country and seeing how much investment we can get in and people to come and do business in Nigeria. So I would like to share my thought on the interview. I realized there seems to be an inclination towards service export. And it seems to be very excited about digital trade, which is good. So first of all, let's look at service export. Of course, service export basically involves export of services, meaning selling intangible goods or services abroad. I remember they will call it invisible in banking. You are selling invisible product. WTO has already categorized the services into 12 groups and different mode of service trade. There is one in which I can be in Nigeria and then render the service through online platforms. And then I can decide to travel to go and deliver the service. The person can decide to come to Nigeria to come and receive the service, like people coming to Nigeria for medical care, which is happening now because of the private sector developing fantastic healthcare services. But I noticed the focus is on digital trade. Digital trade is just one of the service exports, and it falls under the telecommunication, computer, and information services, and some of them under support services. You see digital trade as services that is delivered digitally, either delivered digitally or is transferred digitally. So for example, if I am streaming, that's a service delivered digitally, online streaming. Or the good itself is a digital goods and is delivered digitally. That would be something like software. So it's a digital good like software or delivered digitally like online streaming. So now my concern is this, which I think, because I remember, I also noticed she mentioned something very important. The fact that they have a matching order that they need to attract. We need to get about 50 billion. If we're going to make dollars stay with Naira stay with about 50 billion. So it should be a two-pronged approach, which she mentioned, which is the fact that he's talking to a pharmaceutical company and a number of other businesses, and then, of course, with digital trade. So it's good that we are focusing on both. However, in as much as we are excited about telecommunication services, about IT digital, which is just a component of service trade. Now, I decided to go and check the data of service import in the world. Service import in the world is now about $6.5 trillion. $6.5 trillion. First of all, who are the major importer of services in the world? US is a major importer of service in the world. US is a major importer of service in the world. Now, when you look at what US is importing, the question, which is where I'm going, in the terms of what are the services being imported in the world? What are the services being imported in the world? US, a major importer of services. US imports $719 billion in service import, followed by China. China imports $551 billion of service import, followed by UK. UK imports $393 billion. So in as much as we want to trade in Africa, but remember we need a short-term inflow of dollar through services. Now, if you look at the top 10, from United States to China to United Kingdom, Ireland, France, Netherlands, Singapore, Japan, and Germany, and Switzerland, top 15 service importer in the world, Africa is none of them. Africa is none of them. So meaning, if we are trying to deliver services in terms of service export, who are those that are importing it? United States, over $700 billion. China, over $500 billion. United Kingdom, over $300 billion. Ireland, over $300 billion. Those are the market we should be targeting. Netherlands, about $300 billion. Singapore, about $295 billion. Germany, about $214 billion. So, meaning that it's important for us to target the people. It's important for us to target the people who are a major importer of services. So, in as much as we can look at Africa under AFCFTA, but we need dollar, we need to target countries who are a major importer of services. United States, China, United Kingdom, Ireland, Netherlands, Singapore, Japan, Switzerland, Germany, India, Italy, Canada. These are the major importers. The question is this: what are the services that this country import the most? Transport service, travel service. In fact, transport and travel service is almost 40% of the total service import. Remember, service import is about $6.5 trillion, $6.5 trillion, and about 3 trillion is transport and travels. Business support services is about 500 billion. So actually, business support services, transport and travel constitute about more than 50% of the service import in the world. Now, telecommunication, computer and information services is just about about $200 billion. Now, I'm saying this to say that in as much as it's good we concern on services, because we have an advantage in service, no doubt. We've not done well in good export. We have an advantage in service, no doubt. However, if we are going to do it, we should not focus only on digital trade. I think there are a lot of other areas of services we should be looking at, particularly business support services, rather than what's the name? Telecommunication, computer and information services. Telecommunications, computer and information services is great, is good, is important. We should do it. But while we are doing that, we should look at business support services. Business support, and I'm talking about the two areas I feel we can focus on, which is education on one hand and health on the other hand. That we have skilled professionals rendering support services for businesses in these areas. Because we have a huge population. Training people in health, having a lot of people in education, either in a primary, secondary, and university level. I think we can do a lot in this space, only that it involve the people moving abroad. Which will mean the service have to be delivered, the mode in which the delivery of the service have to go abroad. But it's important we know that we should not just focus our attention only on the area that is just about 200 billion. Telecommunication, computer and information service, IT service about 200 billion. Transport, travel and business support services is about 50% of service being imported in the world. Now, let's now look at what Nigeria itself, how much currently are we doing? How much are we really doing as far as service is concerned currently? And I'm using the data from International Trade Center for this. According to ITC, International Trade Center, it said that in 2022, Nigerian service export was about $4.8 billion. And this cut across transport, travels, financial services, telecommunication, that's computer, IT, and telecommunication, other business support services. So what I can see here is Nigeria already have advantage in transport. Nigeria already have advantage in travels. Just like I said earlier, that travels and transport constitute the bulk of service import in the world. That's exactly what is reflecting in Nigeria export data of services. Apart from the travels and transport, financial services is number 3. IT is actually very low, $263 million, but over $2 billion for transport, over $1 billion for travels and tourism, about $803 million for financial services, because we have branches and banks across Africa. In terms of government services, about 455, that's issuing visas and the like. and then telecommunication. So what this is basically saying is that we already have an advantage in transport and travels. So what we are not doing very well, which came very top on the list of demand for service in the world, that's import of service in the world, is business support services, other business services. I think we need to focus attention also on that. In as much as I've said, I don't have issue with the digital trade, but I feel we should also leverage on our strength currently, and not just leverage on our strength currently. We should not forget the fact that business support service is number 3 in global demand, and we need to also work on this area. Let me talk about the importance of some of the things we need to do ourselves, because quite frankly, we are not doing a lot in terms of getting ready to trade in services. So for example, we don't have for import of goods, we have Form N. For export of goods, we have NXP. But we don't have service export. We don't have service export. Now, for service export, we need Form NCX, like someone said. NSPX. Someone called it NSPS, that we need Form NSPS. So that form, the regulatory framework, just the way we have regulatory framework for export of goods, we don't have that framework for export of services. So if we are trying to promote service export, particularly digital trade, we need to have a Form NSPX, a form that will be filled, that will help government to capture the service being exported out of the country. Currently, we don't have a very robust data for this in terms of service being exported out of the country, because not all the services being exported are being captured. Understandably so. They are not being captured because currently in Nigeria, we don't have a form that will help us to be able to capture it. Number one. Number two, so we need a regulatory framework with a national trade in service policy. National trade in service policy. I don't know if it's contained in the current what's the name? I've not seen it. The trade policy of the country, if services is in it. I hope I'll be able to get it from some other quarters later on. But I heard it's been done, or probably even concluded already. Now, but it's not in the public domain. It's not something we can easily see to be able to check and be able to see if this is there. If it's there, that's great, because I've not seen it. But if it's not there, it's something we definitely need to do something about. Now, we need an service export promotion agency. NPC is trying to do a lot in service export, but NPC structure is designed for trading goods. Although they have a section now being developed in service export, but because there's a lot going on in trading goods, I don't know how much effort is being put in service export. So, sometimes you need someone that the only thing they're thinking about every day is service export. It's service export. So I feel it would be good to have such agency, or maybe a directorate in NEPC. I don't know if such directorate exists right now. That's service export. I don't know if such directorate exists right now. But it would be good if it's a separate agency or a directorate in Ministry of Trade. But I don't want to talk about the politics of where it should be cited, but we need an agency that is focused only on service export. But like I said earlier, it's important also that we do something very, very serious on the priority areas. In as much as we're looking at digital trade, I think we have a robust population that we can trade to be able to deliver service abroad. A robust personnel we can train to be able to deliver service abroad, and in delivering those services abroad, we can earn in foreign exchange. And I think we can do that in education and health, and maybe some other areas are probably not mentioning right now. But the idea on service export is very good. It's growing. It's growing, and it's growing very fast. And I think it's an area Nigeria can take advantage of right now. It's an area Nigeria can take advantage of right now because of the opportunity we have. It's just starting, it's growing, just about getting close to 7 trillion. So we can leverage on that sector and do something in that sector. So we are with the government on what is being done as far as particularly Ministry of Trade. But my thought on what I think we need to look at holistically, So at the end of the day, we do it in a way that we are able to, we look at it holistically and do it in a way that we are able to ensure that what we are doing is all encompassing and not focusing on a particular area. Remember, the major importers in the world does not involve any African countries. Number one. Number two, the area of import in those countries are not the area we seem to be looking at, which is on services. So in as much as, which is on digital, in as much as those areas are important, but it's also important to situate the fact that those areas is just about 200 billion out of about $6 trillion trade in services. These are my thoughts. I believe this also can be factored in whatever it is the government is doing, just to be able to ensure we get more dollar in, not just in trading goods, but also in trading services. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.